Welcome to the very first episode of Conversations with Commerce Next, where we dig deep into with different industry leaders on digital retail topics. And today I'm talking with Exponia CEO Peter Tchaikovsky about customer behavior and how it's changing and evolving along with the rest of our lives during this coronavirus pandemic. Peter and Exponia will shortly be putting out a new framework for thinking about customer behavior in this new world. And I had a chance to read it in advance and looking forward to an opportunity to hearing more about it and hearing some of the things that they're seeing, both in the trends and some of the recommendations for moving forward. So you maybe start with, Peter, introduce yourself and Exponia, help us understand I think for the audience, kind of the lens in which you look at the world.
Scott, thanks for having me. So I'm Peter Tchaikovsky, CEO and co-founder of Exponia. I have actually previously had e-commerce background. I ran a company to over 100 million in revenue. And, Exponia is a dream come true in terms of tool that I built for previous version of myself. Exponia is a customer data and experience platform. It combines the actionability of the campaign tools with the smartness of the customer data platforms into one, which enables us to have by far the fastest time to value on the market and be the best rated CDP on the market. And the lens, how we look at it is we always look at it from customer perspective. So we push customer centricity and promote it to become the design for companies going forward.
It's always, I think, useful having a company that's kind of founded on, being an online retailer themselves and kind of feeling the pain that folks go through there. So, we're talking about customer behavior and, you've been observing quite a bit of it. Maybe you could help me understand kind of what that entails in terms of like the volume of clickstream traffic or sessions, like number of retailers, regions, like help us understand a little bit of the methodology of the data that you've been observing.
So Exponia is the leader in terms of customer data platforms for e-commerce and online retail. And we have over 1 billion customer profiles that we're managing for our customers. And so we have all the data that these companies have about their customers, and this is mostly our strongest vertical is by far apparel, and so that's where we see the strongest. But we also have general retail or home and decor and other stuff. And for some of these customers, they were asking us to look at their data and help them understand how has the customer behavior changed. And what do they need to do to ensure they will win in the future? Because the changes were quite abrupt.
So yeah, tell me about some of the things you're seeing, kind of what's expected, what's unexpected. And I would imagine there's a lot of new behavior, just people are operating differently these days.
Yes, and you can see it actually in the data. The interesting thing is the outcomes are not the same per client, so they vary quite a lot. Plus, they actually vary even from week to week. So examples would be, when there was lockdown in many countries, the initial 1 or 2 weeks, fashion sales, apparel went down, but then it actually rebounds. And many of our customers, they have now their best days ever. They're, beating Black Fridays, beating Christmas, because they were really able to adjust quickly. And now, so some of the interesting findings, the smart AI-driven channels that usually were performing really well, they are not working now. Initially surprising, then when you think about it, AI needs long data, and the patterns are changing, so AI doesn't have the data to learn from. So the simple channels are actually outperforming them significantly. Another thing is the timing of purchases has changed significantly. Many companies, have optimized their sending of emails based on the old data. Now you can see it's changing. Many of our customers use predictive mailing time, so every person gets the email in a different time. But even that isn't working perfectly now. So what you need to do is, rather than having, previously it was 60-day time when you learn, and based on that you adjust. Now we're advising our customers to set it for a week or 2 weeks, because the behavior is really changing. Then there's a lot of change in terms of, when you look at the customers, usually what we see is the bottom segment doing well, the top segment doing quite well, but the middle segment is actually struggling, which I assume is related to the economy and what's happening there. So these are some of the findings, but there's much, much more.
So middle segment in terms of kind of like income, or like customer, profiles.
Yeah, it's from our perspective, we don't have, for most companies, we don't have the information about the incomes. So this is from the customer lifetime value perspective, and in terms of, average price point.
Right. So there's just, wow, I mean, it's got to be challenging for any online retailer to, be watching their analytics and watching this customer behavior and things that they had been depending on, like AI and machine learning, realizing that it's, not as dependable as it has been because of this lag. People are, probably using, email differently. They're like you were saying, they're shopping at different times of the day. So, I mean, that's a real challenge. And I mean, and I think on top of all of that layered there is that there's a lot of new customers coming in. So you have all these customers that were only shopping in stores, or maybe they were shopping online at another brand, and now they want to shop with the brand that they used to shop in the store, and they have to go online. So, like how much of this is driven by new customers versus existing customers?
Mm-hmm. So, we expected, when we started looking at the data, we expected that most of the behavior would be actually driven by new customers, but we actually found out that the behavior of existing customers changed massively. And actually, it's those companies that were able to adjust to this that are winning the most. So you can definitely see new customers online, and all the brands that we work with now have an influx of new customers. However, what is happening more and more is that customers that were shopping with you in one category suddenly start to shop in more categories, and that's actually driving the growth. And now the question is, will they be able to keep these customers? And that's the real challenge. And also, for the existing customers, what we're seeing, the most critical element is the ability to act in real time. Things are changing from day to day, and unless you're able to show to customers that what you have and what you're telling them is relevant, they're not going to stick with you, because they do not feel as if the communication is personal, as they were used to in brick and mortar.
I mean, I heard someone kind of joking around, it's like the new abnormal, where, I mean, like, how long do you think this kind of constantly changing volatile customer behavior is going to continue? Like, and, I guess, should a retailer, settle in on some metrics, or should they expect that these behaviors are going to continue to be volatile?
So we definitely believe it's going to be volatile. When we have a global footprint, but we are strongest in Europe and the US. That's where we see most of the data. But what you can see is there are even certain European countries that have already opened up stores. But the results from the initial days are very disappointing. And you can that's understandable, because even in the US there was a survey that said that 80% of Americans do not expect to go to stores once they're allowed to, but they want to wait for longer. Now, how long? Nobody knows. So what we actually believe is that nobody really knows what's going to be the future. People are now driven by fear. It's the fear about their life, but it's also fear about their livelihood, because the economy is collapsing, and one out of 7 Americans is out of job. So which is horrible. But people still need to wear clothes. They still need, people are now working from home. So like home and decor and all these things are thriving in terms of e-commerce. The question is, which companies are able to adjust to this behavior quickly. And companies that are digitally first, they are very fast at this. And what we see is, all traditional retailers are now moving towards digital because they understand that this is here to stay. There was an estimate that in US, 14% of retail is online. And it was expected to grow by roughly 10%, so to something like 15.5. Now the estimates actually expect that it might actually grow to over 20% within the next year. So this is massive shift. And companies that are staying where they were, will be losing. As Gretzky said, you have to skate where the puck is going to be, not where it was. And that's why we as Exponia are really significantly investing in simplifying the onboarding and making it much quicker for companies to start. So we were already the fastest in time to value. Now we're pushing to get it to below 1 month of the critical use cases to be up and running, and the retailers getting the value.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about skating to where the puck's going to be, and you started talking about some regions that are coming back sooner. And I was hoping what you were going to say is that serves as a model for some of the markets that are a little bit further behind, but it doesn't sound like that's necessarily the case. It's just hard. There's a lot of new things happening, a lot of uncertainty. You really can't know what's going to go on. So I mean, given all of that and these challenges, like, what have you observed as, like, what are the important capabilities that companies need so that now that they're in this situation where things are constantly changing, they have to adapt, they have to be more nimble. What have you found that allows them to be more nimble and to be able to react or even foresee where they need to be a little bit?
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons people were asking us this question, and this is one of the reasons why we put together the framework for the new normal fundamentals. In there, what we see, there are two main things. First, you need to understand your customer, and then you need to serve them according to their expectations. And most companies, which is strange in 2020, they still are not able to use the data about behavior from one channel in the other channel. So if I'm not opening emails apart, in apparel apart from whatever shirts, you would still be serving me on the website stuff that doesn't have anything to do with shirts. And in offline, I might be buying something and you would be trying to sell me something completely different in online. Now, putting all of this together and making sure that the omnichannel experience is consistent, is relevant, is personalized, is happening at the time when you expect it, that's all critical.
I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think having those capabilities sound important. I always kind of turn towards leadership in any situation, but I think now especially you need to paint a vision for the company, and it's not just like this, we're going to be serving customers in this segment, but it's a vision for how you operate. And I'm interested to hear what you're observing with some of the companies you're working with. I mean, one of the things I'm hearing is that that almost like a silver lining to this crisis is that companies are learning that they can strip away a lot of bureaucracy and they can move faster, they can make faster decisions than they ever imagined possible. But I don't know if you're seeing that, and I'm kind of curious, what are the leadership lessons that you're observing with some of the companies that are adapting more quickly?
Yeah. So this is one of the things which positively surprised me in this crisis. Previously when we were talking to retailers that were used to long campaign cycles, there were quite a few retailers that had campaign cycles in weeks, like 3-5 weeks, and we were cutting that down to 1 week or a few days. Now we have customers like even Olokai basically able to execute campaign within few hours. Olokai was a great example. They had an idea, they did photo shoot in the house of one of their employees. where he was actually wearing a suit and wearing flip-flops with that, wearing the sandals and saying like that's his secret. They were able to execute from idea towards customers in less than 10 hours. And most of that was the photo shoot and playing with that. Now they were able to do other things within minutes of the idea. And that's the key. And we see that companies that are this fast in reaction are those that actually have the best results.
Is there anything you're learning about kind of like what enables a company like Olakai to to move quickly like that, and someone needs to be making the decisions that this was a 7-step process. Don't worry about 5 of those steps. Really just focus on 2, because speed is the priority here. Or I'm just curious, like for anyone that's listening, what are the organizational culture attributes that you found are most useful?
So what we see is that e-commerce directors and CRM managers are gaining much more importance. And usually these are people who are very data driven. And what they are able to do now in this environment is they're able to show their leadership results very quickly. E-commerce is, one thing that I used to love about e-commerce was any idea that I had, when we tried it, the next day I had results, in an A/B test or something, maximum 2 days, and this is actually happening right now. And CEOs in retail are starting to understand, okay, I actually have a measurable way of trying things. In retail, if you came up with a new concept, you would spend half a year developing it, pimping it, putting it into practice. Now with e-commerce, you can actually have an idea. It can be on the website, in 5-10 minutes if it's something simple, and then you can see the results, a couple hours later, and and through this you can learn much quicker. So we see that the focus on results and focus of CEOs to understand the importance and the reactability that you have in e-commerce is improving, and giving the power to these functions is actually something that we see is happening, which we believe is actually very positive.
Well, this is great. Well, thank you so much for taking some time today to share some of the things that you've been observing with all the data that you have access to, sharing the framework and offering some recommendations for how folks can, make some adjustments in a different way of operating, so that they can be, so they can adapt and be more nimble. So appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. So we've put together this framework, for retailers that are thinking about this, and they can do a free assessment on our website where they can actually understand what are the key steps that need to be taken. And also we are preparing it in such a way that it will enable them to come to their leadership and explain why and what they need to do for the new normal. Because we really believe that companies now need to, take the opportunity. There are customers that were forced to go and shop online. The question is, was the customer experience good enough for them to stay? And they are still, most of them are still afraid and still don't want to go into brick and mortar. You can see it in Europe where some stores open, 0 customers in per day. Can you imagine? So, you still have the period where the customers are more attuned to digital, and only companies that would serve the customers in a really good way in digital will be here a couple of years down. So we want to help companies with the transformation. We believe it's not too late to transform. It can be done very quickly if the leadership puts the effort behind it. And so that's why we believe we can help them.
All right, great. Well, we'll make sure to let people know where they can learn more about that. And good luck with all the digital transformations that you're a part of now.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.